on the morning of Friday, June 11th, when I called when I found out the Russians had left, I called the Secretary General. He said, well, can't you put some troops in there and take that airfield in Pristina before the Russians get there? And I said, we'll try. I called back to the Pentagon. The Secretary of Defense couldn't be disturbed. The Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs said, well, why don't you just put an officer up there and see what's going on? Well, that wasn't going to work. And so that's when I tried to get a hold of Mike Jackson. But he told me he had a plan, but I didn't know what the plan was. And before I could ever find out what the plan was, everybody was awake by that time. And so the British Chief of Defense had talked to the Secretary of Defense, or the British maybe Minister of Defense, and they decided just to let the Russians do what they're going to do. Forget about it. So that's why nothing happened on Friday. Jackson told me not to worry. He would have his forces there early on Saturday morning. I said, well, when will they start? He said, well, right away. So at 8 o'clock, nothing happened. 10 o'clock, nothing happened. At noon, almost nothing was moving. And I later, I asked Mike what was going on. He just couldn't get these forces moving. And so he finally got to the airfield. It must have been around 5 or 6 o'clock. And he went onto the airfield, and he was, according to, this is his report to me, there was a Russian BMP that circled his Humvee, and he decided to leave the airfield rather than get in trouble with the Russians. And so nothing was done. So the instructions that I had hoped he would follow were to get to the airfield and be on the airfield so that they couldn't reinforce. Now that he couldn't do. Then I got a call from Washington saying, just have him land a couple of helicopters or a helicopter on the airfield to block the runway. So I passed this to Admiral Ellis. Admiral Ellis passed it to Jackson. About 10 p.m. that night, Ellis called me back and said, Jackson is refusing to put the helicopter there. He says it's too dangerous because there's thunderstorms in the area. And so I said, okay, well, don't worry about it. I'm flying down the next morning and I'll see Jackson. So that's where it was left. Now, then the question was, what were we going to do about blocking the runways? And that's where we got into this emotion before we ever came up with a plan.
Were the runways blocked with helicopters in the end?
Nope.
And despite the...
But I want to make something very clear. As a commander, I would never have ordered Mike Jackson to do something that he thought he couldn't do or shouldn't do without a full discussion of it and understanding what his objections were.